Well, hello there, my brothers. This is your boy, Garrett J, the founder, Wake Up Warrior, and creator of Warrior Wealth, the podcast. And here to bring you episode number 8. Holy shit, episode number 8. Last week here on episode number 7, we brought you a little replay, a little soundbite, a little taste of another game inside of one of our events known as the Warrior Leadership and Business Summit. There is a repeat on that event coming up, but a different version, multi-day event happening here in the late spring 2018, known as the Warrior Wealth Summit. We'll be releasing more details on that as it comes forward. But for those who didn't turn in last week, you're going to want to. That was our topic. Our topic was production. This week, we're going to continue down another topic. We're going to move into this week's topic, which was, along the line of what we've been covering so far, which is the idea of profit. We're going to talk specifically around the idea of profit, but we're going to look at how profit comes in and out of your game versus on two different topics. Number one, the idea of cash, and the other idea, that of cash flow. But to make that happen, we're going to take a little dive here. If you're watching here on our YouTube channel here, if you checked out some of our stuff over at warriorwealthnow.com, you're going to see some of the angles there. You might see some of my new hand tattoos. Not real hand tattoo. It was actually the henna. We just came back from Hawaii. You might also see that my hair is significantly blonder than it normally has been, and that is also because I was out in the sun surfing every day for the last 8 days. So glad to be back with you again here live in studio, recording this real time for you. And for those who might be tuning in here new into the game, let me give you a little taste. I'm going to give you a full rundown on who I am and where I've come from, but I can tell you this. My name, again, is Garrett J. White. I am the founder of Wake Up Warrior and the creator of a movement to empower men around the globe, particularly businessmen, in the art and science of what I call having it all. If you're not familiar with this, you can check out more details on this by heading to warriorbook.com. You can check out our other podcast, Warrior Wealth. You'll find in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, as well as now available on Spotify. You can also check out another show that I do with my wife called Date Your Wife. But across the board, if you're really curious about Warrior, go ahead and Google that. Wake Up Warrior, or Google my name, Garrett J. White. There'll be plenty there for you to research, look at, talk to, listen to, watch, and consume. So why this show? Why did we come about doing this show? What is the point of this podcast? Why do I share it every single week? Well, this show is created for a particular type of man. It's not created for every man. It's actually created for businessmen and for men who wish that they could think, operate, or perform at the level that high-level producing businessmen operate. And so to pull that off, this show itself is about money. It's about making money, it's about keeping money, and it's about growing money. Because when I came up through the ranks inside of my last 17 years as an entrepreneur, there was not a whole lot of people there to teach me, to guide me, to train me, to inspire me in the initial days on how to think when it came to the topic of money. And so today in this show and in every show that I run, my target is to empower businessmen to be able to see things from a different angle. And from that new angle, begin to make new decisions. To make decisions that maybe they wouldn't have made otherwise. To make decisions that will lead to the making of more money, that will lead to the keeping of more money, and will ultimately lead to the growing of more money and building wealth in their lives. But not just the wealth found in economics, but the life of having it all that comes along with the money. That includes body, being, balanced business, something we've been calling here since 2009, the Core 4, and something that you, again, can learn more at by checking out warriorbook.com. So let's go into today's topic. Our topic this week is profit. Last week we were on production. The week before that we were on power. And the week after this we'll be into the conversation of protection. But for today we're going to move into the topic of profit. And we're going to come into the idea of understanding what money actually is. But we're going to start with a principle, and that is an idea under the following, and that is that dollars follow value. Okay? Dollars follow value. So profit, very, very simply spoken, is the difference between the amount it requires me to produce a product, service, or experience for another person in business and the amount of revenue that we bring in that's up and above that amount. So if it costs me $10 to produce something of value in the marketplace, a product, a service, or an experience, then if I produce that and I sell that and I make $20, then my profit is the difference between that $10 it cost me to produce it and the $10 and that $20 that I sold it for, which in this case would be a net to me of $10. So business does not exist just to make people happy. It's not around just to pay taxes. It's not around just to hire people and employ people and create pension plans and benefit programs. Although all of these are things that happen and occur inside a business, the ultimate purpose of all business is to make a profit. Without a profit, a business itself becomes a hobby. It becomes a hopeful strategy, a hopeful hobby for actually hitting high outcomes. But in order to be able to pull anything off inside of the topic of business, we actually have to give a shit about profits. So this starts with this first idea that as a man, and as particularly a businessman, you must not only give a shit about being profitable, but you must also be comfortable with the idea of being extremely profitable. Now, this is difficult for some individuals. This was difficult for me in the beginning. I was not raised in a situation where I was raised to be comfortable with wealth. I wasn't. Wasn't comfortable around cars, wasn't comfortable around high-end houses and vehicles and investments and businesses and property. Like, this was not something I was naturally trained in. And just like everything that you and I experience, it takes us time to experience it. I just came back from Maui, Hawaii. And we were there out in Maui. I guess it's not Hawaii, but the Hawaiian Islands. We were in Maui. And we're out there surfing. I started surfing here this last summer. And inside of the first day that we're out surfing, I'm experiencing waves that are bigger than anything I had ever experienced before. And there wasn't just like one or two of them. There was like a shitload of these waves that did not stop. We went out, particularly our very first day, out to a place called Churches and another place right next to it called Sand Piles. I was out there with a kid named Matt Curley, 22-year-old pro bodyboarder in Maui. And Matt took me out there, and we went out, and I remember we were paddling out to this place, and the sets are rolling in, and they are bigger. The set waves are the biggest waves that I've ever seen. Like laying in the water, they're the biggest waves that I've personally ever experienced while being on a surfboard. Now, I've watched bigger waves being out on the beach or on the shore. I've seen bigger waves on videos like everybody has. You know, everybody's familiar with Jaws and Poia. You know, what happens out there with the massive waves that all the big wave surfers go about. So I'm sitting out there and I'm paddling, and I'm sitting next to my coach, and I'm absolutely terrified. Like, there is a terror in me and a fear in me that is totally new. It's a totally new level of fear. And I was uncomfortable out in the water. Now, it only took catching a couple of these monster waves for me to start feeling a lot more comfortable. And by the time we were done with the trip, I became accustomed to the size of these waves, so much such that my story about what a big wave was and my story about what a small wave were began to change. They were juxtaposed. Now, in the selling and the marketing world, the juxtaposed position strategy comes about in the following way. You know, let's say I'm going to sell a product or I'm going to sell a service to someone. This individual has a story in their mind. I run salons, train hairstylists. My wife and I have a massive impact inside of the hair industry together. You can check out and learn more about that at dkwstyling.com. But my wife and I in the hair industry have changed the game in what pricing looks like for hair extensions. Right? A normal woman will come in and get her hair done for $1,500 to $2,000. Now, this may seem like a little amount of money, a lot of money, or like out of this world kind of money to a woman who first approaches this. And everybody arrives at it at a different place. Now, what is expensive to some people might be $200 to get their hair colored. But all of a sudden, we're juxtaposing that with getting their hair done at $2,000, right? So somebody in their mind says $200 or $300 a lot for hair, versus $1,500 to $2,000. And so when I have $2,000 in my mind as a lot of money, then when I come back to when somebody offers me a pricing of $300, it seems very inexpensive, even though 4 or 5 years ago, I might have thought that $300 was expensive. Now that I've become accustomed to a $1,500 to $2,000 experience with hair, my new pricing model inside of my own mind tells me that the normal for me is different. So this happens for all of us. What is an expensive car? You know, how much is an expensive car? My very first vehicle I ever bought was a Dodge Plymouth. It had no struts. I paid $1,000 for this car. I owned it outright. I was so pumped about having this vehicle. And that was expensive to me, to come up with $1,000. I remember when I'm sitting down to buy this car, and the car salesman's looking at me. He's like, it's $1,000. I'm like, oh my God. Like in my mind, I was like, this is an expensive car. Now, I drive a Lamborghini Aventador. It's my daily driver. That's a $500,000 car. It's $499,998. Now, add some tax onto that, and obviously went over $500,000. And people will ask, I've become used to this car. I've become normal. This car is normal. My wife drives a G-Wagon. We've got other vehicles. I've got an M5. I've got shuttles and trucks and all these other vehicles, right? And yet, if you go back, there was a time in which my experience with money was a $1,000 car. And just like a woman who's going to pay $2,000 for her hair, I would have never imagined there would come a time that I would pay $500,000 for a vehicle. I mean, that was more than my first condos and homes, etc. for years. That was more than my first 3 homes that I ever owned. I mean, it would not have made a lot of sense to me. And now it's normal for me. It's normal. I never imagined that somebody could spend $1 million on a Bugatti or $2 million on a Bugatti. It's like, why would somebody do that? Well, my mind is starting to see how that actually happens, being where I am at. I'm not going to spend $1 million to $2 million yet on a Bugatti. Maybe I do down the road, but I'm not right now. And so this idea of becoming comfortable with pricing is exactly what was happening for me out in the waters in Maui. So we surfed the whole week. Every single day I'm going out with Mac, where I go out by myself. And then we return back here to Southern California. There's not any swell right now at all. So the waves are small, and we go out today, and 2 things are stunningly obvious to me. Number 1 was how fucking cold the water is here. And I'm in a wetsuit compared to how cold that water is not out in Maui. Now, everybody was telling me in Maui, like, oh my God, the water's so cold. It's like 75 degrees, 74 degrees. I'm like, dude, this is not cold. You want cold? You come here to Southern California in the wintertime. Right, and some of the guys up in Iceland are like, dude, you want cold? You come up here and you surf when there's like literally frozen water in your face, and it's like 36 degrees outside. So we're out there surfing today, though, and the waves are small and the water is cold. The waves are small and the water is cold. For the first 20 minutes, I'm out there with my surf coach and one of my buddies, Jeremy Finlay, and they look at me and they go, dude, what's going on with you? And I was like, man, I just feel depressed. They're like, you feel depressed? I was like, yeah, dude, I feel a little bit depressed. I can't really describe it. Like, I'm used to now. I've become accustomed to these waves coming in over and over and over again, these bigger waves impacting my ability to surf, which is giving me an opportunity to catch really big waves. And I would let all of these, what would have been bigger waves for me here in California where I live. Now, I realize there's lots of big waves in California, but where I'm at right now, and the last year and 9 months I've been surfing, 10 months, there are only a certain number of waves that I've ridden that are, roughly like head high to maybe a foot bigger. And there's not too many days where that rolls in like that. Like, we'll get a couple days like that and then they disappear. Well, I was at a place where it was like that every day, all day long. Like, the waves were just like that every day, all day long. And my mind became accustomed to it. Today, I'm sitting out in the water and I'm like, holy shit, these are tiny. Like, I'm almost like depressed a little bit. I'm like, these are tiny. The very same feeling I would have if I look back and I thought today I get to have a new Dodge Plymouth used car with no struts, with Hawaiian seat colors and covers, and that my version of cologne was going to be pina colada air freshener, which, by the way, was a strategy of mine at the time because it was cheap as shit. You could pick up pina colada air freshener at the gas station for about $1.50. And one day, this gal I was going out was like, man, you smell really nice. You smell like pina colada. I was like, oh. This is the cheapest cologne I've ever done. So I went with it. I had Hawaiian seat covers. I sprayed the pina colada. Little I realized it was like 20 years down the road was the foreshadowing from my surfing experiences. Now, what does any of this have to fucking do with money? It has to do with this. Like, the same thing that happened to me with surfing is what happened to me with money. Right? There is a certain level of comfort that you currently operate in when it comes to the amount of money that you make. Like, this is not a theory. This is not some, like, idea I just pulled out of a fucking book today. Like, this is my own life. Like, there is only, like, who you are today and the amount of money that you are comfortable with today, right? If you look back at where you were 5 years ago, and first off, if you're doing the exact same shit financially today that you were doing 5 years ago as a businessman, you got a fucking problem. Like, you literally have a fucking problem. This means that you have plateaued. This means that you have flatlined, and you are setting yourself up for failure and to be taken out. Right? So the only game that exists then is this rising, shifting experience of taking what was once a luxury and creating it as a necessity. What I mean by that is expanding your standard for profitability inside of your business. Getting ultimately okay with the idea that you make money. Now, I have been around businessmen who go through this as entrepreneurs. They make an incredible amount of money, or they make an incredible amount of money based on who they were. And the family they came from does not make that kind of money. And so they're left in this weird quandary, this weird situation with, how do I actually deal with the fact that I make incredibly much more money than my family, that I take judgment because of it, also that people don't really understand me. They don't understand how hard I work. In my world, this is the case. People look at what I have, and they look at what I've created, and they look at what I've built, and they think somehow this shit just happened, that I was somehow blessed. Like, I fucking hate it when people say this to me. Like, it drives me fucking insane, because you don't hear producers say that. Like, high-level producers never look at another producer and say, wow, you're really blessed. Right? It just doesn't happen. I have people that pull up next to me in my car all the time at lights here in Orange County, and they'll say, oh, hard knock life, huh? And I'll roll the window down and look at them, and I said, by hard knock life, if you mean a 17-year career as an entrepreneur, hustling and grinding my fucking ass off 12 to 14 hours a day for the last 17 years, having built and lost 6 different companies and finally established myself after the biggest fucking loss of my entire life, while at the same time bringing my entire family along with me, my body being imbalanced in connection with my business, employing 45 different people full-time currently, and managing the stress and emotion that goes on with that, as well as dealing with always being up to date on my taxes or accounting or marketing or sales. If you mean that I don't ever get to turn my brain off, and 7 days a week, 365 days a year, my mind gets to think about and problem solve shit while your pussy ass gets off at 5 o'clock and you get to go home and fucking forget about everything for the weekend. If that's what you mean by blessed, if what you mean by is you taking the day off at the fucking beach while I'm grinding, solving problems in my journal, well, guess what, motherfucker? Fuck you. And I've had these conversations. I had to stop hanging out with family members. I stopped hanging out with friends. I stopped hanging out with people from the church that we went to at the time. We stopped going to that church, but I just stopped associating with people who didn't support my rise in what I desired. And a lot of this was the uncomfortable conversation that a lot of individuals go through about being profitable. Now, I fucked this up so bad in the beginning, it is painful to think about. I found a way to give away the money all the time. I found a way to waste some money in all kinds of bullshit inside the business. I found ways to guarantee that I wouldn't take home very much money, even though the business was doing a lot. I found ways to assure that I would fuck it up and we would mess up the game inside of our business, because I was uncomfortable with the idea of sitting on high levels of profitability in my business. What would I do with the money? I hear entrepreneurs tell me this. Well, what would I do with the money? I'm like, what would you do with the money? What the fuck are you talking about? Well, I don't have any reason to do this. What would I do with the money? I was sitting with an individual, a buddy of mine named Matt Atkinson. He's a big real estate investor in Salt Lake City, Utah. Matt, if you're listening to the show, what's up, buddy? And Matt and I were sitting down, we were having dinner one night, and he asked me a question. He says, why do you keep pushing? And I said, because my purpose of my life is to expand. The purpose of my life is to grow. It will never be enough. It's not about the money. It's about the growth. And here's the crazy part about profitability. Profitability in business is like the scoreboard. It's the scoreboard. There's 3 scores you're going to see on the board. There's going to be top line revenue, there's going to be net revenue, and there's going to be profitability. You're going to see these 3 numbers on this scoreboard. And you can jerk yourself off all fucking day long about the first one. You can jerk yourself off about the second one. But when it comes to the third one, which is actual true profitability found in 2 forms, cash flow and loads of cash, meaning stockpiled cash, which we discuss inside of the vault, and at the same time, consistent, regular, recurring revenue cash flow inside of your business. These 2 numbers are the life and death of your fucking empire. If you do not have large stockpiles of cash inside of the vaults, and if you do not have incurring revenue coming in consistently every single day and every single month into your business, fresh water, and you continue to expand the riverbeds, then what you are is a slothful businessman. Slothful. If you are a businessman and you are currently doing the same amount of profit today as you were 10 years ago, you should punch yourself in the fucking balls. There's not like any nice way to say this. And I'm going to have you really consider that the reason that you do this is because you are uncomfortable with the money. You can give me all kinds of bullshit stories. You can tell me all kinds of bullshit things. But what ultimately ends up happening to most businessmen is that they get to a place of two things. Number one, they're either uncomfortable with the profit, or number two, they are uncomfortable with the continued push. Right? So businessmen I'm around will do all kinds of insane shit, right? We do this. We see this in Wake Up Warrior. Thousands of clients in 27 countries. I get to see the patterns of men over and over and over and over and over again. In our hair industry, where it's just predominantly 98% of our students, 98% of our artists, 9% of our clients are women. Okay, so we don't spend a lot of time with men, but I get to experience the female side inside of the hair industry. And here's what I can tell you. There are two things that go on. The first one is a discomfort with money. And that itself becomes the constriction and the suffocation of profitability, because you will not continue to push if you are uncomfortable with the results of pushing, which is getting paid. In the hair industry, we watch this happen with our stylists and our artists. They will give away business. They will give away services. And that might be you. Maybe that's you. You're somebody who's so uncomfortable with making a lot of money. You're uncomfortable with making and keeping your money. You're uncomfortable with profitability so much such that you are okay with giving away a vast majority of what you do, not demanding top dollar for what you do, and assuring that there is a margin and a gap between what it costs you to provide and what you are selling for this product, service, or experience, so that you actually have some profits, so that you actually have some cash left over for you as the king, that you will build entire businesses that are actually nothing more than jobs for you that don't pay very good. I've heard often the joke that most entrepreneurs got into entrepreneurism so they left the job working 9 to 5 for somebody else. Right? They go to start their own business only to work 7 days a week, never getting any time off, and making less than what they were doing before. And this is the truth. Most small business owners, which if that is you, you are probably better off to just get a job with somebody else who's a real entrepreneur, like a real businessman. You'd make more money and you'd actually have more fun. You'd enjoy your life a lot more. But for a vast majority of you, the reason why you don't continue to push and the reason why your wealth continues to evade you is because you don't have the balls to take a stand on actually getting paid. You're like, no, there is some kind of mental fuck up inside of your brain that is not allowing you to say, listen, it is okay for me to push for this. It is okay for me to demand this. It is okay for me to take a stand for financial profitability inside of my kingdom. It is okay for me to want bigger things. It is okay for me to hunt bigger hunts. It is okay for me to create bigger shit in the marketplace. Now, if that's you and you know that's your issue, okay, I get it. I know I've been there too. This is one of the reasons why I love the Warrior Book and the Brotherhood, because we use a powerful tool called the Warrior Stack. You can find out more about that at warriorbook.com. Because this is an issue. It is an issue. Some of you were raised with money. Some of you were raised around and you're comfortable with it. But a vast majority of the businessmen I've ever met are not that comfortable in the beginning. You know, at a certain level, you just tap out. And that's the second problem that arises. The first one is not being comfortable with money, but the second one is actually becoming comfortable with the money. And you're like, Garrett, now you're not making any sense at all. What the fuck are you talking about? First off, it's like I'm comfortable with the money, and now it's like I'm not comfortable with the money, but now I am comfortable with the money. First, the problem is you're not comfortable. Now you're saying the problem is you're comfortable. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So look at it from this place, right? So if you look at the scale of the way that you and I experience money, okay, here's what ends up happening. Most of it started in this place of not having much. Right? I'm not around a lot of people that were born into money. I'm around first-generation millionaires and multimillionaires who have built businesses. This is most individuals I'm around. And so all of us have the same kind of thing going on, which is this natural fucking hustle. There's this grind factor when you don't come from much that just pushes you to produce, and you just fucking hustle. Like, this is a fact. It is a reality. The end. Okay, and so the place that most of us started was this place of scarcity. And scarcity is this place where poverty is built, where you don't have a lot. There is not an abundance. There is not much to lose. And so most of us, including me, started in this place of scarcity. We started in this place where we didn't have much. We started in this place where we knew we wanted more, and so we went after it. But there was not much we had to put on the line. Maybe we had to put our reputation on. Maybe we had to put some dollars online. We had to invest some money. We had to put some dollars on the table to actually get some shit moving forward, okay? But once we began to build, we arrived at this second problem, and it's called abundance. Now, abundance is when you begin to produce enough in your profitability, okay? You produce enough money where the business itself doesn't have lack, your family life doesn't have lack. You as an individual do not feel like you're lacking anything in particular. You may want some more things, but you're genuinely comfortable. Like, your fight or flight mechanism is shut off. You wake up in the morning, you're like, man, I don't have to do much today. I can continue to do what I've done, and I can continue to get a pretty good result. And this becomes the plight of the next phase, which is the arrival at abundance, which is going from a situation where things were shitty or not good to a place where you now feel like they are good, maybe even great. And at this point, you'll watch hustlers become pussies. You will watch individuals who started from the grind will forget what got them here, and they begin to stop. And they try to go into a hold-on strategy. They don't want to make any major changes. They don't want to rock the boat. The same things that got them where they are, they're not taking the chances anymore. They're not taking the risks anymore. They stop pushing. They stop innovating. And they actually start trying to simply maintain the status quo. Now, I am not against protecting what you built. You've heard me talk about this inside of protection. We'll talk about that again next week. Protection is crucial of what you've built, as long as the new foundation is what you've built to again build something bigger, to build something more. Why? Because as a businessman, part of our growth, part of our understanding of ourselves is not found solely on a golf course or with a surfboard in the middle of the ocean. It is found in the innovation and the expansion and the creation of more value in the marketplace. You thought I forgot about the dollars follow value thing. We're going to get to that here in a minute. And so I'll watch businessmen get stuck here. They get stuck in a complacent place of being okay with good. They get to abundance and they stop. And they think that abundance is the destination. And in abundance, life becomes easy. They lose the edge. And maybe that's you. You've lost the edge. You've lost this edge, this hunter mentality. You've lost this hustler that used to exist deep inside your soul. The same guy that came from nothing all of a sudden has something, and he's got some different labels on his shirts and his pants and his shoes, different labels on his cars, and maybe his home, your home's in a different zip code or a different location. Ultimately, nothing's really fucking changed. You just built a bigger kingdom, which is fantastic, but inside of that place, you bumped up against the greatest enemy of our profitability, and it is being okay with the status quo. And so you watch men who used to be powerful become weak. You'll watch men who used to have a lot going on begin to fall apart. You'll watch men in industries that should have never, ever fucking lost the number one position lose it to young, hungry, innovating entrepreneurs. And nowadays, it's happening even faster because technology has allowed for literally the gobbling up of innovation, has allowed for entrepreneurs to collapse down into years what used to take decades. And so if you're a businessman that's in your 40s and you've started to settle in and you've said, well, you know, we've got this figured out, or worse than that, you're in your 50s or 60s and you're listening to this show and you're sitting here and you're like, shit, this is me. I'm around men like this all the time. And there's a level of paranoia that's built because there's a clock inside. You can only sit. It's like a hot potato game. You can only sit inside of this story of everything's okay and everything's good for a short period of time before one of two things happen. Your company begins to implode itself out of boredom, or you as a businessman begin to destroy your business and your life out of boredom, and you begin to operate from a weird, twisted sense of protection that does no longer actually force innovation and expansion. And yet inside of your innovation, your expansion is where you found out your fire in the first place. And I've been there. That's how I lost my first empire in 2007. I got bored. And I got okay with being okay. I got okay with abundance. Didn't need much anymore. Distracted myself with Ironman. Was training 30 hours a week with this part-time job called the Ironman Triathlon. Ended up in the World Championships in 2007 in Kona, Hawaii. And had an amazing experience. It was wonderful. And while I made that run at Ironman, I also lost all my companies. Because I took my eye off the ball. I took my eye off the ball. Shit that would never happen to me now. Would not ever happen to me now. Happened to me when I was a rookie in my first 7 years as a businessman. Why? Because I got comfortable. Part of what pushes and expands profitability is the willingness to put yourself into a different frame. And so here's the frame I'm going to have you consider. I'm going to have you consider that your destination is not scarcity. That scarcity itself is not a wonderful place to be. Nobody wants to operate in this place of desperation and lack and limitation. On the flip side of this, although we arrive at abundance, abundance is not actually a destination. Abundance is a pit stop on the way to what we're actually pursuing, and it's prosperity. It's the place where wealth is found. It's a place where you and I can create opportunity for ourselves financially and for the marketplace around us in the form of value that will ultimately leave a legacy for you and I that is distinct and different than just being okay with making enough money. You know, if I was okay with just making enough money, I think about the 40-some individuals who work full-time for me right now. And I think about their families, and I think about their lives, and I think about their children. I think about the abundance that they experience in their world. I think about the prosperous results inside of their marriages, inside of their children. Their children will never be the same. I don't go out and hire up, big-time ballers. We build our teams from the ground up. Individuals who didn't believe much in themselves. We found them. We could see the diamond in the rough. And over years that we work with them, refining and helping polish away all of the coal and get down to this diamond that under pressure becomes hugely valuable, both to organization as well as to themselves and their families. Part of why I love building and growing isn't just for the profitability sake of me making more money. It's because it allows me to provide more opportunity. It allows me to have more purpose. It allows me to fight for something bigger than just myself. See, prosperity is about taking your business to a higher level of purpose. Prosperity is beyond profitability. Profitability becomes a fuel of the prosperity. Being profitable is the standard. Productivity is the standard, and profitability is the requirement. It is not an option or negotiable that you make money as a businessman. You must make money. You have to make money. It is not okay for you not to make money. And you need to be making money every single quarter. And every year you need to be making more and more and more and more. Why? Because it means your systems and marketing and sales and fulfillment and ultimately your value produced and created for the others in the marketplace has increased. And so I look at the great scorekeeper, this game of money. I look at the great scorekeeper and it reminds me, I say, okay, well, I know we're winning because we went 4x revenue again this year. And at the same time, we went literally 70% more profitable than we were the year before because our systems and our tools and our technology became more efficient at delivering the same value to the marketplace that we had the year before. We only did it better. We did it faster and we did it for more people. And so my prosperous pursuit is understanding who I would become. I've mentioned here on this show multiple times, and I've shared it on my other shows at events that I speak at, that by the time I'm 61 years old, I will be a billionaire. This is not like an if. This is not going to possibly happen. This is a guarantee, and it's going to happen likely before that age. But by 61, that's 20 years from now. I look at the last 20 years of my career. I haven't been an entrepreneur that long. For the 17 years that I have been a businessman, I look at who I've become in those 17 years, and I look at the speed and the ability based on the skill sets and mindsets that gotten me to this point, and I'm looking at who I would have to become to pull that off, which is the most fascinating conversation for me of all conversations, which is who would I have to become to be that billionaire? Who would I have to become as a businessman to make that thing happen? Who would I have to allow myself to die to in order to be reborn as a new man? Because the man I am today is not the man I was a year ago. And along that path, profitability must increase. Both the lump cash that I take as a business owner for my life and my family, as well as the cash flow that spins off to support the businesses every single month and every single day. You know, right time I'm recording the show, we got payroll coming up here in a week. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars going out in payroll here in the next week and a half. I think we're around like $300,000 in payroll going out. And inside of that, you're like, okay, well, dude, you have to have cash flow to be able to pay out this kind of payroll. Like, it doesn't just happen by chance. It doesn't just happen by accident. Payroll is hit because of profitability. You cannot actually pay payroll if you don't have money. And if you're not profitable and you're selling everything for fucking nothing and you continue to jerk yourself off about the wrong numbers, well, you can't hit payroll. And you can't hit payroll if you don't have cash flow. And you can't have cash flow if you don't produce more value. So let's look at this. Let's look at this for a second. Think about a fire. Right, I'm not a big camper, but we did go camping quite a bit when I was a kid. I think we went camping because camping was cheaper. You didn't really have to pay for camping. You know, there was a little bit of pay, you had to pay a little, a little fee to get into the campsite. I don't know how much that was, a couple of dollars to get into the campsite. But we went camping a lot. We didn't go on big vacations. We went camping. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I loved camping. We loved going up. We'd make these tinfoil dinners. We'd fold up the hamburger, put them in the tinfoil, do the triple tinfoil, put in barbecue sauce and some onions and carrots. We'd chop up some tomatoes, put them up in there, fold them up together, put them down on the fire, run around, play football in the forest, take pine cones. We used to play pine cone baseball. Like, whenever we go camping, we would find a big-ass stick that we'd serve as a bat. We never brought a bat. To this point, I was just sitting thinking about it. I was like, why didn't we bring a bat up into the forest? But we never brought a bat. We would find a stick, and then we would go find pine cones. And then we would build a baseball diamond right over by where our campsite was. And me and my brothers and sisters and our friends that would come with us, we would play pine cone baseball. And we would whack these balls and we'd play the game until the sun went down. And then we'd come to the fire. We'd eat our tinfoil dinners. We'd make s'mores. We'd play night games with flashlights. And we'd go to sleep and be scared of bears. And this was like our entire routine. And we loved it. And it was amazing. And it was fantastic. And there was nothing wrong with the camping experience. Camping itself was fun for me. But I wasn't raised in a situation where we went on big-ass, luxurious vacations. Like, my kids were taken to the Four Seasons in Maui this last week for 8 days, and we're on boat tours and all over the place. Like, and I get it. They get to have an experience that I never got, which I don't think necessarily is better. I think it's a bigger experience. What it means, they're just getting to experience way more. There's only so much you can learn playing pine cone baseball your whole life growing up. Like, there were things they're getting to learn that I wasn't getting to learn as a kid. And so this game of creating value, though, the difference between what we did going camping and why going to Maui to the Four Seasons, why this is such a different experience. And by the way, I didn't even think the Four Seasons was that great in Maui, by the way, particularly what we were paying for it. It was okay. I thought it was all right. There might have been some campsites that were probably even better back when I was there. I think I may have had more fun. But the piece to get into this, though, is that in order to pull off either one of these, it comes down to this conversation of value. Like, this conversation of being able to actually afford value that is being offered to you and also being able to produce value that you're producing for the marketplace. Again, I was not raised around money. I did not come from a lot of money. I did not come from entrepreneurs. I was not taught and trained as a kid to think as a marketer. My daughter thinks as a marketer. Like, she's being trained on this right now. All of my children think like closers and marketers and systems, and I require them to study and read marketing books and training and speaking books. Like, this is stuff I was not being required to do as a kid. But the one thing that I did come to understand was that dollars follow value, and that my ultimate path to making money was to create more value. If I wanted more money, I had to create more value. Like, it was that simple. Now, how do we actually go about creating more value today? I think it's really simple. I don't think it's a very complicated game. It's very simple. We identify that there are problems that other people are experiencing. And these problems may be things that they actually understand themselves and they're aware of, or they're problems that they don't understand and they're not aware of. Like, they don't even recognize that it's a problem for them until you begin to introduce that there's actually a problem for them. And this was happening. This is what we did with Wake Up Warrior. I mean, if you'd come to me years ago and told me, hey, it's a problem if you're not having it all. Embody being balanced in business across the core four. Like, is this a problem if this is not occurring for you? If you had told me this, I would have been like, I don't really know what you're talking about. If you come to me back in 2007, back in before things fell apart, 2006, and you started telling me about it, I would probably have listened to you. I would have not even have known I had a problem because I didn't think I had a problem. And so there are some problems that you are solving in business that people don't even recognize that they have. And so your marketing has got to be such that you can actually position that they have this problem. And then inside of acknowledging that there is this problem, that there's a painful consequence for having this problem inside of their world. Now, all profitability is linked to the ability to deliver value, right? So my dollars always follow my ability to deliver value. And my ability to deliver value comes down to solving problems and curing pain. Right now, the flip side of this is solving problems and producing pleasure, which comes on the other side of solving pain. Now, whether I'm at the Four Seasons Hotel or whether I'm camping in the Rocky Mountains, at the end of the day, if I'm selling a product or service to either one of these families, the same thing exists, which is I must clearly begin with understanding that all value creation begins with problem solving. This is why one of the greatest skill sets inside of your world as a businessman is problem solving. You know, I sat down with the president of the school for my daughters, and he asked me, my daughter was having some issues at another school we used to go to, so a private school. And they were talking, the problem was my daughter was like hustling all the kids. She was creating stuff, selling stuff at lunchtime, selling stuff in the car line. She was making like $25, $35 a week, $40 a week selling stuff. She would make stuff at home, hustle, and sell it at the school. And the president of school asked me, he said, listen, like, what do you think is the number one skill that you want your children to learn? And I said, it's very simple. Two things. One, problem solve. Two, take care of themselves. That's it. Like, there's not a lot more past that. There's a lot of other things that come ancillary to that. But the first piece is that they learn to take care of themselves. The second piece is they learn how to problem solve. Deeply and powerfully and passionately know how to solve problems for themselves as well as other people. Why is this? Why was this my comment? Because all of your ability as a businessman to solve problems comes down to identifying problems in other people's lives and then identifying the painful consequence of not solving those problems and then identifying the pleasurable consequence of yes, solving those problems. When I can solve a problem, I create pleasure. When I can solve a problem, I avoid pain. And these fundamentally are why people do what they do. And this is not new. I'm not like some new guru talking to you about this shit. Like, this is basic shit, right? All value creation comes down to solving problems, and solving problems is about getting people away from pain and towards pleasure. It's helping them overcome some painful consequence of a problem they have. The crazier part is most of the time, the business profitability is linked to a hidden opportunity inside of your world as a businessman, which is your ability to identify painful consequences to problems that the consumer or the person that you are serving did not even recognize was occurring. So take, for example, you have somebody whose diet is not on point, right? Their body is out of whack, and you happen to sell some kind of fitness product or supplement or nutrition, something in the body category. Right? And so you come at this and you say, you know, your body is unhealthy and you're going to get diabetes and you're going to die and it's going to be this and this. And you're like, okay, cool. That is a primary direct option to looking at and addressing the conversation of having a problem. And then on that other side of having a problem, beginning to look at it and say, okay, well, the primary painful reality is that your body is tired and ill and your body doesn't feel good and you don't feel like you look good. But here is the secondary level. This is where the big profitability margins begin to open up, is when you're able to identify as a businessman the second tier of the painful consequence of the problem. So now I'm coming back to the fitness conversation, and I'm in this situation where my body's overweight, and you're talking to somebody about it who's saying, hey, listen, you know, your body is this, and you're going to get diabetes, and you're going to get sick, and you're not going to feel good, and you're going to have all these things. So if you take my product, you're not going to get diabetes, you're going to be happier, you're going to feel good, your body's going to operate the way it's supposed to. Again, all front level, face level. Here's a problem, your body's out of shape, it's not working. Here's a painful result, you're going to get sick, you're going to get ill, you're going to die. Here's a pleasurable possibility, which is, hey, you're going to move towards this thing, you're going to have a fit body that's on fire and it's amazing. And now you drop down into the secondary game. And you come in and you say, okay, well, guess what? Guess what else? Your sex life? Yes, your blowjobs, your sexual intimacy, your connection, your significance and feeling sexually significant as a man is completely eroded by how you treat your body. And that discomfort you feel getting naked, that lack of confidence that you feel when you look down and instead of seeing a six-pack, you see a keg, makes your penis look even smaller. Like that lack of confidence and your abuse of your body is costing you sexual connection with your wife. And you want to know the worst part? That sexual disconnection with your wife is causing you to go to porn, causing you to masturbate more than ever. And that porn and that masturbation is having you distance yourself from your wife. And that distancing of you from your wife is beginning to cause dysfunction in your communication. And that dysfunction in your communication is now all of a sudden starting to cause thoughts inside of her and you that maybe it's time for you to end the marriage. And all this because you won't handle your body. Now, what I just gave you an example of was linear logic and linking downward the connection to painful consequences, the unintended consequences of solving problems for people. When I started to see this inside of myself and I started to see this inside of my business, I started recognizing very quickly that there was this angle to profitability I had never experienced before. I'd never considered. This was about 7-8 years ago. Which was this idea that one of the fastest ways to increase your profitability is to begin to clearly articulate the problem better than you're currently articulating it. And to be able to clearly paint the painful consequence for not solving the problem. I mean, imagine this. You want to increase your profitability, right? Then you've got to increase your conversions. That means of all the prospects that come into your game, you've got to be able to convert a higher percentage of them. You can go hunting for more, but you've got to convert a higher percentage. Inside of our salons, we have some sound systems that went up recently for lead development, for hair extensions, natural beauty bros. And I came back to my girls and I was like, listen, I appreciate that we're profitable right now, but the only way we're going to be at a level profitability that I am okay with and that I will say is, all right, we finally hit a floor, is if we get a higher conversion of prospect to actual client with cash. And the only way we're going to do that is we've got to be better at clearly communicating with these clients while we are discussing the situation with them during consults. They have to see a bigger vision for themselves by doing this than what you're currently doing. And I would listen to the recordings and I would listen to the way these girls are doing the calls. And I'm like, okay, well, here is our problem. Can you see what you're doing? Your first level tier with me. So your profitability is linked up to your ability to solve problems, but your ability to solve problems for people comes down to your ability to articulate that the client even has the problem, and on top of that, that there is even a painful consequence that would open up the pricing and the flexibility for you to charge more by making the situation more elastic, by making it more mobile, by making it more flexible, because the problem is somebody's dealing with, coming back to the body example, is no longer a problem of just trying to get in shape. It's now a problem of dysfunction in saving your marriage. And some people say it's ridiculous. They listen to me and they're like, dude, it's ridiculous. It's like, okay, well, I'll just keep cashing checks. I'll just continue to push the gap on the profitability inside of all my companies, and I'll continue to provide massive amounts of value to people, because this is not manipulation. This is actual true inspiration. When the better you are at doing this, the better you are at delivering value. Your value in exchange for dollars. Your dollars follow value, but value is the ability for you to solve problems for people. And if you want to deliver more value, you have to solve more problems more efficiently for more people. The end. The end. It is not rocket science. Business is like so fucking simple. But most men make it very complicated. Why? Because it sounds cool to make it complicated. It sounds fancy to talk in complicated terms. It sounds cool and fancy pants to talk in terms that sound really fancy to everyone else. When the truth is, nobody gives a shit. People don't need your complexity. They need simplicity. And how do you do this? You speak to them in real talk terms around problems and painful consequences and pleasurable possibilities. So businessmen will come to me and say, well, Garrett, how do I become more profitable? I said, well, you have to deliver more value to more people more frequently. Well, how do I do this? Well, you've either got to create better products, services, or experiences, or you've got to take the good product, service, and experience that you had, and you've got to deliver them to more people more consistently, and you've got to charge more for it. And the way you can confidently charge more for it is to know that you have actually fulfilled on the result of that you promised. Here is the problem. Did you solve the problem? Yes or no? That is why one of the fast ways to being able to demonstrate the value that you offer to the marketplace as a businessman is to come back and be able to share case studies. Case studies, not testimonials. Testimonials are, hey, Bob's business is really awesome. Case studies say, here is where Bob was, or here was where Mark was, and now here's where Mark is. Mark started here, now Mark's over here. Mark started here, now Mark's over here. Here's where he was before, here's what he was after. It's very simple in the fitness world. We see this. We see I'm overweight, fat, don't hate my body. Now I'm fit and on fire, and I've got six-pack, and I'm sexy. Right? This before and after idea inside of fitness is easy to see. When I am demonstrating value to the marketplace, one of the accelerants to being able to solve more problems is to be able to create many different case studies that demonstrate to the prospect, that demonstrate the ability to go from point A to point B, to go from pain to possibility, to go from problem to possibility, to go from pain, this place where life doesn't work, to this place where life does work, that the ability to get there is doable because they are not the first ones to take the journey. This is why I love the Warrior Book. This is why I love all of our videos and movies found online, Wake Up Warrior, because why? Because we have literally thousands of case studies. Thousands of case studies. My podcast, Warrior on Fire, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of case studies every single month that come in through email to us, painting the before and after experience of just listening to that podcast alone. Like the results of what we do here at Wake Up Warrior are inarguable. Inarguable. You can disagree with my methodology. You can disagree with the way I talk. You can disagree with my tattoos. You can disagree with my hair. You can disagree with the way I operate on just about everything you want. But the one thing that you cannot argue away are my fucking results. The end. In my own life as well as the life, and here's the big one, of our clients. Both in the hair industry, in the financial services industry, and inside of our training company at Wake Up Warrior. Like, you cannot argue. The results are inarguable. They are stacked hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. And we know this. But how did we get case studies? We got better at solving problems. So one of the first steps you may have to back up in as a businessman is just acknowledge the fact that you're shitty at solving the problem. Like, I meet businessmen, they're like, I want to make more money. I was like, well, dude, I appreciate you want to make more money, but here's the problem. You are shitty at what you do. Like, you're not that good. What do you want me to tell you? Get better at what you do. And as you get better, it's going to be much, much simpler for you to expand profitability. It's going to be much easier for you to make the money. Why? Because you're going to be okay with taking a stand for the eliteness inside of your expertise in solving the problem. So let's look at this idea. Dollars follow value. Dollars will stop following value when two things have happened. We covered these two things so far in this show. One, you're uncomfortable with profitability. You're uncomfortable with making money. You're uncomfortable with high levels of cash coming into your world, both stockpiled cash, dividends that you take for yourself as a business owner every quarter, member or owner draws, okay, owner dividends, however you do, owner's disbursements, however you want to fucking categorize it, and your cash flow is weak. And we said that this will naturally occur because of a couple things. One, because you're uncomfortable with the idea of being in cash heavy businesses where there's huge profitability coming in. You're not okay with the idea of stockpiling huge amounts of cash for yourself inside of the vault, which we'll discuss next week. Right? So that's one issue. The second issue is you got good at doing those first two things. But that was the problem, is you stopped it good. You hung out in abundance. You arrived at abundance, and in abundance, you built the castle, and in that castle, you settled down, you retired, which is you basically began to die. And you say, you know what, I quit. This is the only game I'm going to play. I'm not playing any other game. This is my game. I'm playing this game, the end. That is a game. It is over. That is a game I'm playing. And you're like, I quit, I retire, I'm not playing any other game but this one. And this becomes your story. This becomes your game. This becomes your conversation of, here is what I am going to settle on. What I'm settling on is producing and creating at this level, and after that, I'm done. Third thing we discuss in today's show, in summary, is this idea that your ability to gain more profitability, once you've mastered these two of realizing your goal has to be about expansion and pushing to prosperity, is this other piece. And this other piece says what? This other piece says, hey, part of my greatest mission is also to deliver more value to more people more frequently, because dollars follow value. And once I'm comfortable with the money and I have a fire to push with purpose, okay, now we're on track. Now the next piece is I actually have to become much better at solving problems for other people. And inside of my own business, my products, services, and experiences must become more efficient at solving the current problem. They have to become more efficient in their marketing. It has to become more efficient in their sales systems. It has to become more efficient in its fulfillment systems. And it actually has to build case studies of individuals who went from painful problems to pleasurable possibilities. And the more these case studies show up, and the more that you produce these types of results, and the more that this becomes your reality, the more profitability becomes the standard. And you're not going to get there on luck. You're not going to get there on some lucky little heyday. It's just not going to happen. And so here's some hard questions. We wrap up this show. Here's some really hard challenges I want you to look at. We talk about power here in week number 1 of every month. We talk about how you are your number one investment. We talk about production and how your number one asset is you and your number one investment is your business. And now we're coming here, we're talking about profitability here in our 3rd week with the conversation and topic of money and being comfortable with it. I'm going to challenge you this week to sit down and have some really hard conversations with yourself and with your teams about where you're currently at with your profitability. How comfortable are you actually with the amount of money that you're making and the amount of money that you're keeping? It's not enough to just make it. You've got to be keeping it too. You've got to retain it. You've got to stockpile it. Cash has to become something that you're comfortable with. Now, I'm not talking about stockpiling duffel bags in the back of your pickup truck. I'm saying just being okay with there being a lot of commas and a lot of zeros and a lot of accounts. And being okay with that. Being okay with being profitable. Being okay with being a very profitable businessman. Being okay and unapologetic with the amount of money that you spend, the lifestyle that you live, the businesses that you build, the direction that you're going, no matter even if that means that the circle of influence that you're currently with does not understand you, does not support you, and will not get you to the place you want to go, and you know you've got to let them go. Because you can know that you're your number one asset and you can make that investment. You can know that your number one investment is your business. But if you know those two things, but you don't have the courage to go expand the value creations you are in the marketplace today, then it doesn't really matter. So my challenge for you is to ask yourself this question. What is the one big thing that must change inside of my business to maximize my profits? It's not a hard question. It's a very simple question. Step back. Whether that means you're having a meeting with your accountants, whether it means you're having a meeting with your executive teams, whether it means you're sitting back by yourself and you're contemplating this on whiteboards, I want you to take some time this week. And I want you to step back and say, okay, if I was to expand the profitability inside of this business, what would I actually have to do? There is a source to the symptom. The symptom is profits. And that source to that symptom is your ability to solve problems. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that place first. And although Pinecone baseball is amazing, I can tell you that private jets and vacations, the family, and having experiences with your children and your wife that you've never had before, there's nothing wrong with those. Just like there was nothing wrong with playing Pinecone baseball. And then maybe you as a businessman over the next 12 months to 24 months need to give yourself a run for the money. You need to give yourself permission to just fucking double down and go. Stop putting the money into fucking stock market. Stop fucking putting money into 401k plans. Stop putting money into all this other bullshit. Stop putting money into these hope you get lucky ATM investment strategies and put the fucking money where you can make a difference. Double down on yourself. Double down on your business. Double down on your life. My brothers, thanks so much for being here this week. This wraps up episode number 8. A couple of reminders here as we wrap up today's show. If you are not currently accessing the details of the full science known as the Warrior's Way, we'd encourage you to head over to warriorbook.com, where you're going to uncover the underground science and system that I've been teaching here now for almost a decade. This topic of having it all across body, being, balance, and business. And now we're thousands and thousands of men in 27 different countries who are experiencing this. 10,000 men have this book in their hands today, and I'd love you to get a copy of it, and I'd love to ship it your way for a $100 investment. You can pick that up by heading on over to warriorbook.com. Also, I'd encourage you to check out our other podcast. Warrior on Fire is our daily podcast coming at me live every single day. Would love to give you that message. You just go on over to Warrior on Fire. You can head to warrioronfire.com and or in iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. You'll find that podcast under the same name. And then finally, the Date Your Wife podcast series, which is a show I do every single week with me and my wife, talking around the ideas of sex, money, parenting, and communication. Would encourage you to check that out too if you're a man and in a situation with a married woman, or you're with a woman who you're married to, or you're in a relationship where you're wanting to figure out this game. It's a conversation that comes from dual producers, both of us business owners, and I think you might really enjoy it. My friends, thanks so much for being here. Leave us a review on iTunes. Hope you have a fantastic week, and we look forward to coming back to you next week with our next topic. And our topic is we roll into the topic of protection. And specifically, we're going to begin diving into the actual details and nuts and bolts of what I call the vault. Until next week, have a great week. This is Garrett J. White signing off, saying love and light, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.